Your grandfather probably drove past one of these every week and never thought twice about it. A truck so well built, so absurdly over-engineered that people called it the Cadillac of trucks. Not as a joke, as a statement of fact. The company that built it is gone now, has been for decades, but the story of how it got there and how it disappeared is one of the strangest in American manufacturing. Chicago, 1905. A 28-year-old kid named Charles Arthur Tilt has $1,000 from his mother and a corner of his father's shoe factory. Some accounts say his father was not thrilled about that $1,000 loan, which is interesting because the old man, J.E. Tilt, ends up designing the logo for his son's company anyway. The Tilt family makes shoes. Good ones. The best line in the catalog is stamped with a diamond logo signifying top quality. The T stands for Tilt. Young Charles borrows that branding, slaps it on his new venture, and starts building cars. Not trucks. Cars. Touring cars specifically. Now Charles did not just wake up one morning and decide to build automobiles. A few years earlier, his father had sublet part of the shoe factory to Charles Knight. Yes, the Charles Knight. Inventor of the Knight sleeve valve engine. Tilt takes a job as sales manager for the Knight Motor Car Company in 1904. He spends about a year learning the automobile business from the inside. Then he quits and starts his own company, with his mother's money, in his father's building, next door to the guy who taught him the trade. The first car is built in 1905, but does not sell until 1907. Regular production of 3 touring car models begins that year. These are powerful machines for the era, rated up to 70 horsepower, and they are not cheap. Tilt acts as president, general manager, salesman, and chief mechanic, all at once, in a repurposed shoe factory. Now, here is where the story turns. In 1911, a customer walks in and asks Tilt to build him a truck, just one truck, a simple commercial order. Some sources say it was a local plumbing supply company. Tilt builds it, a 1.5-ton conventional rig with a 4-cylinder engine and chain drive, with dual solid tires on the rear. And something clicks. Tilt looks at the automobile market, looks at the truck market, and does the math. There are more bucks in trucks. His words. He drops passenger cars entirely and never looks back. 6 years of building touring cars gone. From that single customer request, Diamond T becomes a truck company. Period. But Tilt has a philosophy that nobody else in the truck business shares. He believes a truck does not have to be ugly. He said it constantly. A truck does not have to be homely. This is 1911. Trucks are functional boxes on wheels, utilitarian to their core. Nobody cares what they look like. They haul things. They break down. You fix them. You haul more things. Aesthetics are for passenger cars. Tilt disagrees. And that disagreement is going to define everything Diamond T becomes. Through the teens, Diamond T grows steadily, building trucks for agriculture and local commerce around Chicago. Sales are strictly local at first, but by 1915, through a growing network of branches and dealers, the company is gaining recognition as a national truck manufacturer. By 1913, worm drive rear axles are available, replacing the original chain drive. The trucks are getting more sophisticated, more refined, more like what Tilt envisions. Then World War I arrives, and the federal government comes knocking. They need trucks for the military. Diamond T gets appointed to build 1,500 Liberty trucks, 3-ton and 5-ton models, over an 18-month span. The company delivers, on time, without drama. This is significant. 1,500 military trucks is a massive contract for a company this size, and executing it flawlessly gives Diamond T credibility that money cannot buy. When the war ends, Diamond T rolls into the 1920s with a production line already built for volume and a reputation for reliability under the worst possible conditions. This is when Tilt starts making his move. Customers are demanding faster trucks. Tilt responds with bigger engines and pneumatic air-cushioned tires. But he goes further than anyone expects. While every other truck maker is focused purely on function, Tilt starts adding chrome, finished headlights, polished parking lights, gleaming running boards. He introduces 6-cylinder engines from Continental and Hercules for the heavy trucks and a 4-cylinder Buddha for the lighter models. Closed cabs with doors and roll-up windows arrive, all-wheel hydraulic drum brakes. By 1929, Diamond T offers chassis load ratings up to 12 tons on 3 axles. But the real revolution is not mechanical, it is visual. By the late 20s, Diamond T trucks look nothing like anything else on the road. They look like they belong in a showroom, not a loading dock. The company's advertising shifts from calling their product the nation's freight car to something far more audacious, the handsomest truck in America. And they can back it up. All of the chrome accoutrements make the competition look basic by comparison. The thing is, these were not just pretty, they were brutally tough. Diamond T forged an exclusive partnership with Hercules for their engines. L-head 6s with 7 main-bearing crankshafts cast from the strongest steel available, Timken axles, Clark rear ends, Warner transmissions. These were assembled trucks, meaning Diamond T sourced the best components from the best suppliers and put them together with a level of care that bordered on obsessive. The result was a truck that looked like a luxury vehicle and worked like a piece of industrial equipment. By 1929, Diamond T is selling 3,590 trucks a year. Then the Depression hits. Sales dropped to 2,250 by 1932. Most companies would panic. Tilt doubles down on quality. He figures if fewer people are buying trucks, the ones who are buying will want the best. He is right. And then, in 1933, Diamond T does something that has nothing to do with hauling freight and everything to do with proving a point. They partner with the Heil Company and Texaco to build one of the most radical vehicles of the decade, the Texaco Doodlebug. A streamlined airport refueling tanker that looks like it fell out of a science fiction novel. Norman Bell Geddes, the famous industrial designer, works with Diamond T's chief engineer, C.A. Pierce, on the design. The result is a truck only 72 inches tall, shorter than most minivans today. It has a rear-mounted Hercules 6-cylinder engine, a 1,500-gallon fuel tank, a 180-degree curved glass windshield, and absolutely no fenders, no hood, no running boards. The entire body is a single aerodynamic shell. The driver sits at the front. The engine sits at the back. Because the two are so far apart, they install a microphone in the engine compartment and a speaker in the cab so the driver can hear the RPM and shift gears by ear. The clutch and 4-speed gearbox are operated by air pressure. 7 of these were built, total. The first one debuts at the Chicago World's Fair in November 1933, and it stops people dead in their tracks. None of the original 7 survive today, not one. The Doodlebug does not make Diamond T rich, but it does something more valuable. It proves that Tilt's philosophy works. Trucks can be functional and beautiful. Engineering can serve both purpose and aesthetics. And by the mid-30s, everyone in the industry knows the Diamond T name. 1936 is the peak. Diamond T sells 8,750 trucks, their best year ever. They introduced the Model 80, a 3/4-ton pickup that competes directly with the big boys: International, Federal, Rio, Mack. The deluxe version comes with an electric clock and a jeweled cigar lighter on a truck in 1936. This is the Cadillac of trucks philosophy taken to its logical extreme. 2 years later, the Model 201 arrives. A 1-ton pickup that becomes the truck Diamond T is most remembered for. The grille looks like a late 30s Cadillac or Pontiac. Flowing fender lines, chrome details, a swept-back 2-piece windshield. But underneath all that style sits a monster of a work truck. A super-tough heavy-duty frame with X-bracing, Lockheed hydraulic brakes, full floating rear axles, an extra rigid front I-beam axle, cast-iron spoke wheels, 13 steel leaves in each rear spring, 13 stacked like a dump truck's. The gross vehicle weight rating is 8,000 pounds. The Hercules L-Head 6 puts out 73 horsepower through a Warner transmission. It is not fast. Top speed is about 40 miles per hour because the engine turns so slowly, but it is built to outlast everything else on the road, and it costs $1,655, about a third more than a Ford half-ton V8 pickup. Within a company, the Diamond T was simply called the boss's truck, because that is who could afford one. Only about 7,000 Model 201s were built between 1938 and 1949, fewer than 700 a year. For a pickup truck, that is almost nothing. Today, fully restored examples sell for north of $50,000. Some estimates push closer to $160,000. If you're enjoying this, hit subscribe. We cover stuff like this every week. Okay, back to it. Now, the war. And this is where Diamond T goes from respected truck maker to something else entirely. In 1940, the British Purchasing Commission has a problem. Britain needs a vehicle that can transport heavy tanks across the North African desert. The Scammell Pioneer, their existing tank transporter, is not cutting it. There are not enough of them, and the ones they have cannot handle the newer, heavier tanks coming into service. The British approach several American truck manufacturers. They need something fast, something tough, something that can pull impossible weight across sand and mud and broken roads. Diamond T has a prototype, a heavy truck originally developed for the U.S. Army Quartermaster Corps. With a few modifications, it meets British requirements. The initial order is for 200 units, filled quickly. The result is the Diamond T Model 980, a 12-ton 6x4 ballast tractor purpose-built for hauling tanks. And this thing is a beast. The engine is a Hercules DFXE diesel, 895 cubic inches of displacement, nearly 15 liters, naturally aspirated, inline six-cylinder, developing around 200 horsepower and close to 700 foot-pounds of torque at just 1,600 RPM. For context, most American military trucks of this era run gasoline engines. The Diamond T runs diesel. It is one of the only diesel-powered tactical trucks in the entire U.S. fleet during the war. Some variants use the Hall-Scott 440 gasoline engine instead, a massive 1,090 cubic inches, putting out 240 horsepower. That is the largest gasoline engine fitted in any World War II military truck. Either way, the power plant is serious. But raw power is only part of the equation. A single dry plate clutch feeds into a Fuller 4-speed main transmission with a 3-speed auxiliary gearbox. The main box has a low first gear and 3 road gears, fourth being direct drive. The auxiliary adds low, direct, and overdrive ratios, 12 forward speeds and 3 reverse, all driving through Timken double reduction differentials to the 2 rear axles. The front axle is undriven. This limits off-road capability, and the U.S. Army will complain about it. But in the desert, on roads and hard-packed terrain, those 2 driven axles with all that weight pressing down are more than enough. Top speed on the road is under 25 miles per hour. Speed is not the point. The point is pulling power. Coupled with a Rogers M9 trailer, a 12-wheel monster with tandem rear axles and a single front axle on a rotating dolly, the combination is designated the M19 Tank Transporter. It can pull a trailer load of up to 115,000 pounds, 52 tons, the heaviest tanks in service at the time. Ramps hinge down at the rear of the trailer for loading. A 40,000-pound Garwood winch sits between the cab and the ballast box, with 300 feet of cable on the Model 980 and 500 feet on the later Model 981. That winch can drag a knocked-out Sherman or Churchill onto the trailer under fire. It can also pull the Diamond T itself out of a tough spot if it gets bogged down. The ballast box behind the cab can hold 18,000 pounds of rocks, sand, concrete, iron pigs, whatever you can find to weigh down the rear axles and improve traction. Early trucks use a standard Diamond T commercial cab. By August 1943, this is replaced with an open military cab. A long butterfly hood with vertical louvers along both sides covers the engine. Spare tire mounted up front. Tool compartments along both sides. The first batch arrives in Britain in 1942 and goes straight to North Africa. The performance is immediate and dramatic. Battle-damaged tanks need to be recovered quickly, often while people are still shooting at you, and hauled back to repair workshops miles behind the front line. The Diamond T, with its massive winch and brutal pulling power, does this in conditions that destroy lesser vehicles. Desert sand at over 100 degrees, mud after rare rainstorms that turns the ground to soup. Broken terrain littered with debris and unexploded ordnance. It does not care. The Royal Army Service Corps crews who operate these things develop a deep, almost personal respect for them. The truck just works. Here is the interesting part. The U.S. Army never fully embraces the Diamond T tank transporter. They prefer the M26 Dragon Wagon, a 6x6 design built by Pacific Car and Foundry. As late as April 1944, U.S. Army ground forces are on record saying that positive steps should be taken to ensure no Diamond Ts are shipped to any theater except where specifically requested for a specific purpose. The U.S. Army thinks it has too many wheels. The British think it is one of the best vehicles of the war. About 5,871 are built by 1945. They serve in every theater. Every Allied army uses them. The British take delivery of around 1,000 during the war years. Many continue in service afterward, not being fully replaced until the early 1950s when the Thornycroft Antar takes over. A few remain operational in British units all the way through 1971. Nearly 3 decades of service from a wartime truck. But Diamond T's war effort goes far beyond tank transporters. They build the entire range of the G509 series 4-ton 6x6 trucks, cargo trucks, dump trucks, semi-tractors, wreckers. They even build half-tracks. The Model 969 wrecker becomes the U.S. Army's standard medium wrecker during the entire war, equipped with a Holmes W45 heavy-duty military wrecker bed with twin booms and 2 5-ton winches. Diamond T ranks 47th among all United States corporations in the value of World War II military production contracts. Not bad for a truck company that started in a corner of a shoe factory. So the war ends. Diamond T transitions back to civilian production. They have the reputation, they have the engineering credibility, they have a name that means something in the trucking world. And for a while things look promising. The post-war truck market is booming. Everyone needs vehicles. The 700 series and 900 series come out, modern designs aimed at the long-haul heavy transport market. In 1946, they even build an experimental station wagon, a wood-bodied prototype on a 110-inch wheelbase with a Continental F 226L Head 6. Tilt is considering entering the passenger car market again, riding the post-war boom. After testing, Diamond T management decides the vehicle would be too overbuilt and too expensive for civilian buyers. The project is shelved. The lone prototype serves as a company shuttle for several years, gets sold to a Chicago truck driver in the 50s, and reportedly has not been seen since. That decision to stick with trucks turns out to be the right call for the wrong reasons. Diamond T keeps building trucks. But the market is changing. The big players, Ford, Chevy, International Harvester, are scaling up. Mass production, economies of scale, volume pricing. Diamond T's whole identity is built on craftsmanship and premium quality. That costs money. And increasingly, buyers are choosing cheaper trucks that do the same basic job. Tilt retires in 1946 after leading Diamond T for 41 years. He stays on as board chairman. But the company he built is entering a period of slow decline. Sales are still decent. The trucks are still beautiful. But the margins are thinning, and the competition is getting bigger. Then, in 1954, C.A. Tilt dies of a sudden heart attack. He is 77 years old. He has led Diamond T for essentially its entire existence, and with him goes the soul of the company. The man who insisted trucks did not have to be homely. The man who put chrome on a dump truck, the man who turned a $1,000 loan from his mother into 250,000 trucks over 56 years. Almost immediately, White Motor Corporation starts circling. White is on an acquisition spree. They bought Sterling Truck in 1951. They have an exclusive sales and service agreement with Freightliner. They bought Rio in 1957. Diamond T resists the takeover. But without Tilt, the company lacks the leadership to stay independent. On March 28, 1958, the deed is done. White Motor Corporation purchases Diamond T. The changes come quickly, and none of them are good. In 1960, White closes the longtime Diamond T factory in Chicago. All manufacturing moves to the Rio truck plant in Lansing, Michigan. This is framed as a cost-saving measure. Running a separate factory for a smaller number of trucks does not make financial sense. The Rio factory has plenty of room, but something is lost in the move: the Chicago identity, the separate culture, the independence. Diamond T had been a Chicago company for 55 years. The factory, the workers, the institutional knowledge built up over half a century, all of that gets uprooted and transplanted to someone else's facility in another state. White starts trimming models. They begin introducing trucks with similar designs across different divisional brands. Diamond T trucks start looking more and more like White trucks. The distinctive styling that defined the brand for decades begins to blur. The chrome sled dog hood ornament, the aggressive grills, the flowing fender lines, all of it slowly homogenized into White's corporate design language. It is death by committee. No single decision kills the brand. 100 small decisions do. This model gets canceled. That feature gets standardized. This design gets shared with the Rio division. Slowly, steadily, the thing that made a Diamond T evaporates. Meanwhile, the truck industry is consolidating. The 50s and 60s are brutal for independents. Economies of scale favor the biggest players. Ford and Chevy and International Harvester can spread development costs across hundreds of thousands of units. Diamond T cannot. The last true Diamond T rolls off the Lansing assembly line in late 1966. In 1967, White merges the Diamond T and Rio divisions to form Diamond Rio. The name survives, sort of, but the truck does not. Diamond Rio is a different company making different vehicles with a hyphenated name that satisfies lawyers and accountants more than customers. The Diamond Rio products that follow are competent trucks. Some are quite good. But they are not Diamond T's, not in the way that mattered, and even Diamond Rio does not last. White sells the division in 1971 to a group led by Francis Capert out of Birmingham, Alabama. The new independent Diamond Rio Trucks, Inc. introduces models like the C116 series with Cummins and Detroit diesel engines. But the financial pressures are crushing. Despite new products and a solid reputation, Diamond Rio is forced into bankruptcy on December 6, 1974. 1 year later, Loyal Osterlund and partner Ray Housel buy the rights and continue limited production in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. The brand changes hands again and again, each time getting further from what C.A. Tilt built. So what killed Diamond T? It was not bad trucks. The trucks were never the problem. The product was exceptional until the end. It was the economics of American manufacturing in the second half of the 20th century. The same forces that killed Packard, that killed Studebaker, that killed Hudson and Nash and Kaiser, and dozens of other American manufacturers who made superior products but could not match the volume pricing of the Big Three and the major truck makers. Diamond T was a premium brand in an industry that was racing toward commoditization. Every truck had to haul the same freight over the same roads. If a Ford could do it for 20% less, most buyers took the Ford. The ones who could taste the difference, who appreciated the Hercules engine with the 7 main bearing crankshaft, who noticed the extra leaves in the springs, who cared that their truck looked like it belonged in front of a country club instead of a gravel pit, those buyers were not enough to sustain an independent company. Not against the giants. There is also a timing element that people overlook. Diamond T thrived in an era when trucks were diverse and regional, when a fleet operator in Chicago might choose Diamond T because they trusted the local factory and knew the engineers by name, when a driver might insist on a Diamond T because he had driven one for 10 years and nothing else felt right. That era ended. The interstate highway system standardized everything. National fleet operators wanted national brands with national parts availability. Diamond T's dealer network was good, but not comparable to Ford's or International Harvester's. If your Diamond T broke down in rural Texas in 1955, finding parts was a different experience than if your International broke down in the same spot. Tilt's death accelerated what was probably inevitable. Without him, there was no one with the authority and the stubbornness to keep Diamond T independent. No one willing to say, "We will build fewer trucks, and they will be better, and that is enough." The accountants took over. Then White took over. Then the brand was diluted, moved, merged, sold, bankrupted, and eventually forgotten by everyone except the people who actually knew what they were looking at. Roughly 250,000 Diamond T trucks were built over the company's 56-year history. That is fewer trucks than Ford builds in a single year today. But those 250,000 trucks punched so far above their weight that people are still restoring them, still collecting them, still arguing about them on internet forums 70 years later. The collector market for Diamond T trucks tells you everything you need to know about what the brand means to people who understand trucks. The Model 201 pickups that survive are worth staggering money. A fully restored example can command 6 figures at auction. In January 2026, a Diamond T COE pickup sold for $196,000. The average sale price across all models sits around $46,000. For a truck from a company most people have never heard of. That premium, that lasting value, is Tilt's legacy. The scarcity drives collectors to extraordinary lengths. One owner paid $35,000 for a Model 201 sight unseen from Colorado. He sourced authentic Diamond T seats, hunted down the correct hubcaps, which turned out to be almost impossible to find, and now uses it as a daily driver. He estimates its value at $160,000. Another collector in Minnesota stumbled onto a Diamond T by accident, bought it not knowing what it was, and only later discovered what he had. 24,000 original miles on the odometer. There are Diamond T trucks in museums across the country. Military collectors have lovingly restored Model 980s, the tank transporters that hauled Shermans across North Africa. In Britain, Diamond Ts still appear at historic vehicle shows, nearly 80 years after they first arrived for war duty. After the war, surplus Diamond Ts found second careers pulling heavy low-loaders and fairground trailers across British roads. Some remained operational into the 1970s. In Australia, Diamond Ts opened up the remote outback. Road train operators discovered that these trucks could pull 5, 6, even 8 trailers through territory that would destroy most vehicles. A truck named Bertha sits in the Transport Hall of Fame in Alice Springs. These trucks changed the pastoral industry in northern Australia, making it possible to move livestock across distances that had been impractical. The Diamond T became part of Australian outback history, which is about as far from a Chicago shoe factory as you can possibly get. The thing that stays with you about Diamond T is not any single truck or any single spec. It is the philosophy. The idea that function and beauty are not opposites. That you can build something meant to haul gravel and still make it worth looking at. that the person sitting behind the wheel for 12 hours a day deserves something better than a metal box with a steering wheel. C.A. Tilt started with $1,000 in a shoe factory. He ended up building 250,000 trucks, winning a world war, and creating a brand that still means something to the people who know about it. The company is gone. The factory is gone. But every time someone spots a Diamond T at a car show with that chrome sled dog on the hood and those flowing fender lines catching the light, they stop. They look, and they understand what Tilt was trying to say all along. A truck does not have to be homely. It never did. And there you have it, the Cadillac of trucks, built by a guy who started in a shoe factory and insisted on putting chrome on everything. If you have ever seen a Diamond T in person, or you know something I missed, drop it in the comments. And if you made it this far, go ahead and subscribe. We do this every week.